Guys, I'm really excited to be here today. Thank you to Metal Masters for having me speak at this event. I have been fortunate enough to be a consultant and advisor to the Metal Masters group for a couple of years now, and I think this is their third or fourth show like this, like a real seminar, a formal event like this. So you all should be very fortunate to be here today. But I want to take some time to acknowledge you for being here today. So congrats to you all for being an exciting entrepreneur instead of a boring business owner and being here today. So before you give all of these great speakers around today and our sponsors, I want you to all give yourselves a round of applause for being here today, because I know you could all be doing a lot of things today. So give yourselves a round for getting out of the office and being here today. I know you could be on vacation with family. You guys could be out in the office. You could be on a hot roof right now sweating, and I know that's probably something that's very appealing to you. So I guess my main question is, are you here because you don't want to be on the hot roof in July, or are you here because you want to take your business to a new level? How many of you wouldn't answer any question I asked right now, right? So I do have a question for you before we get started, though. And I want you to just focus in on this for the next 5 seconds or so. Here's the question. If I could show you how to add at least one extra sale per month, that's 12 per year, to your business, would you be interested? I'm going to ask again. If I could show you how to add one extra sale per month, that's 12 per year to your business, would you be interested? Okay, good. What would that do for your business? What would that do for your income? What would that do for your life? A lot, right? So before we get started today, speaking of life, I'm going to kind of veer off from business here for a second. How many of you I'm going to pull my chair up for this. How many of you ever wanted to know the meaning of life? I mean, have you ever just got up in the morning and thought, why am I here? What is the meaning of life? Have you ever felt that way? I have such good news. In the next 2 minutes, I'm going to tell you everything you ever needed to know about life, and your whole life will change before we even get into the business. How does that sound? Good? Okay. On the first day, God created the dog. He said, I want you to go out on the front porch and bark at everybody that goes by. I'll give you a lifespan of 20 years. The dog said, that's a long time to be barking. I'll keep 10. I'll give you back the other 10. And God agreed. On the second day, God created the monkey. He said, entertain them. Do monkey tricks. Make them laugh. I'll give you 20 years. Monkey said, monkey tricks for 20 years? I don't think so. That's kind of a boring way to live. The dog gave you back 10. I'll do the same. And God agreed. On the third day, God created the cow. He said, go out into the hot field, work under the hot sun, give milk, slave for your family. I'll give you 60 years. Cow said, what? That's a heck of a way you want me to live for 60 years. I'll tell you what. I'll keep 20, and I'll give you back 40. And God agreed. On the fourth day, God created man. He said, eat, sleep, play, enjoy your life. I'll give you 20 years. Man said, that's it? I'll tell you what, I'll make you a deal, God. I'll keep my 20. I'll take the 40 the cow gave you back. I'll take the 10 the monkey that gave you back. I'll take the 10 the dog gave you back. That makes 80 years, God. What do you say? Okay, God said, you got a deal. That is why for the first 20 years of our lives, we eat, sleep, play, and enjoy ourselves. For the next 40 years, we go out into the hot sun to support the family. We work hard. We work under the sun. We give milk. For the next 10 years, we do monkey tricks to entertain the grandkids. And for the last 10 years, we sit on the front porch and bark at everybody that goes by. You just learned life. You don't need anything else from me today, but I'm going to bring you a lot today. So here's what we're going to cover here today. I call these ROI triggers. And I know I asked you this earlier, but if you could get the maximum value and the most money from every single sales lead, would that be of interest to you? So for those of you that may not know what ROI means, I know a lot of you do. If you're here in this room, you're obviously elevated past a lot of the roofers that are out there today. But this is return on investment. So how many of you, just by show of hands, how many of you own the business? Show of hands, keep them high. How many of you are sales professionals or employees of the business? Raise them high. So it's about 50-50. So the return on investment, what I mean here is the return on your investment capital in your advertising. Because here's what I know about your industry, and I got this from Metal Masters when I decided to take the speaking engagement, is the average gross profit in your industry is about 23%. Now some of you are like, that's really good. Some of you are like, well, that's not so good. But here's the figure I wanted to talk to you about today, is almost $200 is the average cost to get a lead today. Now how many of you feel that is high? How many of you don't like that number? How many of you are not going to answer me no matter what I ask you today? What I want to show you how to do today is I want to show you how to get that number down, and I want to show you how to bring that net profit margin up, okay? And I have a system that will show you how to do that today. And it doesn't matter if it's the roofing industry, doesn't matter what industry it is, it's really all about people and understanding how to connect with people to make more sales and make people trust you. Because selling is all about trust at the end of the day. It's not necessarily about techniques, okay? So quick background before we get started. As Daleen mentioned, I'm a 19-year sales and marketing veteran. I'm the founder of an organization called Renegade Global Entrepreneurs, which is one of the fastest growing coaching and business growth groups in the country. We're here in South Florida. We've been for 7 years doing a live event like this every single month to keep business owners sharp. I'm also the co-founder of my own mobile marketing company called Remarka Mobile. I'm one of the few Dan Kennedy certified business advisors in the country. I'm also the author of 2 books. I have 2 here with you here today, so we'll talk about that later on today. I'm the publisher of my own magazine publication, host of my own podcast show called Sales Velocity. And my work has been seen, as Daleen mentioned, on ABC, NBC, CBS, and Fox. And most important to me, my beautiful little kids. My son Nicholas is 4. My daughter's just turned 1. Kids kind of, at the end of the day, you could have the worst day in the world, but kids just kind of make it all better, don't they? And I have, like I said, for you today, copies of my book, The Ultimate Success Secret, also Renegade Entrepreneur Magazine. I hate doing that. That's my least favorite part of kicking off events like this. But I want to talk about you. I want to talk about you. And this is, for the most part, probably most of you. When I see roofing ads, this is what I see. Need a roof repair, get a free quote today. How many of you run ads like this? Show of hands. And be honest. No one? Over here, I saw a hand go up. Okay. So does that mean you're not running ads if you're not running an ad like this? Because these are the kind of plain vanilla ads that I see all the time. So here's my goal for you today, for all of you, depending on where you may be in your business. It's how to turn more quotes into more sales. How does that sound? Right? Because this is an industry, the service-based industry is all about quoting and quoting and quoting and doing appointments and doing presentations. But how many of you ever get frustrated with the ratio of people who actually commit to being a customer? Show of hands. Right? Is that a frustrating number for some of you? For some of you, is it a good number? Do you have a good closing ratio? Show of hands? Yeah? Okay. So a portion of you. So the goal here, though, also is to add at least 1 new customer per month, 12 per year to your business. And some of the methods I'm going to show you, it's very simple to do this when you take action on what I'm going to show you here today. So I talk about these ROI triggers. This is my topic, these return on investment triggers. And I love this word triggers because when you use these things successfully, they really trigger great responses in your business. So here's number 1. Number 1, I'm going to talk to you today about how to sharpen your message. So what is it that you're saying to the marketplace in your advertising, on your sales appointments, on the telephone? If somebody calls into your office and they ask for information about roofing, what do the people on the phone say? Are they answering questions the right way? Are they eloquent? Or are they actually preventing a sale? Which, believe it or not, is a big problem today. Second thing, we're going to talk about tightening up your sales process. Okay? How many of you feel you have a pretty strong sales process currently in your business? Show of hands. How many of you, now be honest, how many of you feel like your sales process is kind of shaky and needs a little bit of work? How many of you wouldn't admit that in a room like this? Okay? That's usually the case, though. And here's number 3, and this is the biggie. It's how to clean up your follow-up. What happens after a quote? What happens after a presentation? What happens after a sale? Now, what most businesses do today, and I'm doing this for 19 years, is they start with number what? Anyone want to take a guess? Where do most people start this process? With number 2. They launch right into a sales process conversation. They're constantly presenting, but they don't take the time to slow down the sale, craft a good message to connect with their audience, and ultimately follow up to make more sales. So this little 3-step formula today I think will be very dramatic for you. I'll go out on a line to say that this could be a breakthrough for your business because these are techniques and strategies that make selling more with less resistance a reality. And most people today sell with a lot of resistance. They feel awkward. They make the prospect feel awkward, and it ends up being a situation where it's just not a fun situation. That's why most people don't like sales. But it doesn't have to be this way, okay? So I know that this whole sharpen up and tighten up and clean up sounds kind of like a Miami cosmetic surgery expedition here, but we are in Miami, so I thought about you when I cut this out. If you can't read that, it says, I swear I've never had any plastic surgery. I'm naturally this ugly. Heck, my whole family is. So we're going to do a little nip tuck. We're going to do a little tighten up. We're going to do a little sharpen up today. And I think after about the next 30 minutes, you're going to find that things become very crisp for you with your sales process. because it is ugly out there. And what I mean by ugly out there is very few businesses today, and I don't care if it's the roofing industry, I don't care if it's the software industry, their selling process is ugly. It's very awkward, and I want to change that for you here today. So my question for you is, and you don't have to answer this because I'm going to probably put this slide up 3 or 4 more times today, do you have a sales prevention department in your business? Most companies do. They actually, you're laughing, they actually prevent sales because their process is so bad. All right, so I want to fix that for you here today. Here's what roofing contractor said. Metal roofing is a product that needs to be marketed and sold to a residential homeowner. Successful residential metal roofing contractors have to realize that selling techniques and in-home consultations are the key to success. Would you guys agree with that? Right? How many of you are the ones, and now I want a real honest show of hands, how many of you are the ones that are in the field doing these presentations? Hold them high. Hold them high. Hold them higher. That's about, look around, you get more from looking around than you do from me. That's about half of the room. So half of you are actually in the business of making these sales presentations. Okay, so this is great news for you. So these 3 triggers will greatly elevate your game and your closing ratio. Okay? So I'm also going to have a little fun here, and there's a little segment I'm going to put up called What Would Andrew Do? And as I go through the 3, I'm going to tell you exactly what I would do in the situation if I were the sales guy or if I were advising you on your selling process. Sound good? Okay, so I'm going to give you real-life examples. I know a lot of speakers and trainers on sales, they like to talk about theories and ideas and topics, but they don't talk about what would they do if they were in the trenches. What would they do if they were advising the company? So we're going to actually put some pedal. We're going to put the pedal to the metal here today, and not just talk about concepts, but strategies and ideas that I would do if I were helping you as well. But first, before we get into the fun stuff, Ariel, I'm going to play a quick video. I think this should play on me, right? Some of you might have already seen this video before, but you tell me after, okay? So here it is.
Hun, get the door. We're getting roofing estimates today. The door.
Fine, I got it. Mom? Are you the roofers?
Well, can't you read?
Heard you got a roofing problem.
Hi, I'm Shingles.
Hello, ladies.
I am Roofman.
You do have homeowner's insurance, right? Hi, I'm with Spectacle Roofing. No remodeling needed here.
What a rapping roofless! Yay, you got real pretty gutters.
We heard you had a roofing problem.
We can make it go away.
Gutter boy had the day off. Roof, 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 roof.
Oh, hell no.
With Desco, it's love at first sight. Roofing to remodeling to a complete custom home. You'll fall in love with Desco. DescoHomes.com.
Can I go to your bathroom?
Really?
So now, I know that the first few guys aren't any of you. Hopefully the last guy is all of you, but my goal here today is to make sure that you're that sharp, eloquent presenter of roofing material when it's all said and done today. Okay? Sound good? So keep calm and pull the trigger. We're going to go to number 1 here. So of my 3 triggers, trigger number 1 is sharpen up your message. Now again, message really just means marketing. So when we put our advertising or our marketing in the marketplace, we're really sending out a message into the marketplace, and the ultimate goal of that message is to do what? It's to connect with the audience so that they raise their hand and at least make a phone call, or at least say, I'm interested in hearing more. And that is one of the toughest things in all of marketing to do. And if I can show you how to increase that ratio of people who raise their hand and respond and call into your office, maybe by 2 times or 3 times, would that make a dramatic difference in the number of appointments that you have in the marketplace? It would, and that's obviously going to increase your selling ratio. So first question I want to ask you, and I'm going to throw kind of a pattern interrupt at you here today. What business do you think you're really in? How many of you are in the roofing business? Raise your hand. I know that sounds like a very counterintuitive, interesting question. It's kind of obvious. Of course we're in the roofing business. We're here at a roofing conference today. Why would we not be in the roofing business? But I want to challenge you to think a little bit more out of the box here today. So most people say, yes, I'm in the business of roofing. I'm in the business of whether it be metal roofing or shingle roofing. This is what I do. In fact, that's me on that roof right there. But I want you to think a little deeper, and I want you to think about maybe Are we also in the people business? Are we also in the investment business? Because metal roofing, as you all know, is an investment into a long-term value, better value of a house. Most people just think about their deliverables. We're in the roofing business, we sell roofs, and it kind of just doesn't stick. So I want you to kind of think outside the box and think about the people that you deal with and also the product that you now have access to here today, which is more of an investment-driven product. So I would challenge you to think that you're not just in the roofing business, but you're also in the people business and the investment business, okay? So it's a little counterintuitive. So what are you saying in your advertising right now? What are some of the things that your ads say? If you're running full-page ads, what are you saying? And do you look and sound like every other roofer out there? How many of you feel like you're not getting tractions on your advertisements because they kind of look like all 10 other roofers who are running advertisements in the same magazine? You ever feel that way? It's like, how are we going to get noticed with all of these other guys out there? Because this is primarily what we see today. We see these what I call plain vanilla ads, and it's really just quoting driven. It's not connection driven. So I want to show you how to really connect with your audience today and get them to go, wow, that's something different. I've never really seen anything like that before. So there's this term called unique selling proposition. Has anybody ever heard of this term, this USP term? Unique selling proposition, a couple of you? Hold your hands high if you have. I just want to get an idea if I need to explain this. How many of you have never heard of this unique selling proposition term before, this USP? Okay, so I'll explain it a little bit. So all of you have different companies that specialize in different things, yes? And all of you, believe it or not, have a uniqueness about you. You have something that's very different and powerful about your business that you might not think is relevant to your audience, but probably is very relevant to your audience, because at the end of the day, people buy people. They don't just buy roofing companies, right? So what I want to help you do is I want to help you pull out some of the uniqueness and some of the differentiators that you offer to the marketplace today so that people will respond better. And obviously, responding better to your advertisement will make your sales process a lot smoother, okay? So can you humanize and emotionalize your message to connect with your audience? That roofing quoting ad that I gave you before doesn't really do that. It's kind of, like I said, it's plain, it's boring, it doesn't really connect. So the more we can humanize and emotionalize and connect with human beings when you're advertising, the more you'll attract your ideal customer and the more opportunity you'll have to get inside someone's home to do an in-home consultation. And I think at the end of the day, that's what you guys want more of. On the phone, in person, online, in print, it doesn't matter. The congruency I want to help you create all the way through the process today will be a game changer for you when you go out there and maybe craft your next advertisement or set up your next sales appointment, okay? So there's a book called Differentiate or Die, and ultimately what I want to do here is help you figure out a way to totally differentiate yourself from every other roofer in the marketplace, okay? So I want you to, you don't have to write this down now, but I want you to think about this for the next couple seconds. For those of you that have been in business for a long time, what are your differentiators? What is it about your business and your company that makes you totally different than everybody else? Is it longevity in the business? Is it the fact that you guys have certain credentials or accolades that maybe others don't? Is it proprietary material? Is it a certain sales process that you use that really helps people make a decision? What are some of the things that make you stand out that you can exploit in the marketplace? And how can you add these to your advertising? Because when you do, you stop people in their tracks and you get them to go, wow, this sounds different. This is something I might want to explore a little bit deeper, because a study was done, and I don't know if you know this, but the average advertisement today, you only have about 4 to 6 seconds to get somebody to stay interested. We're whizzing through so many ads today. I think the average person sees something like 300 ads per day. So we have to be really, really sharp today to get them to stop and say, wow, this sounds different. I want to respond to this. I want to make a phone call. I want to book an appointment, okay? Now, when you do this, this is how you ultimately connect with your audience. And if you don't connect with your audience in your advertising, guess what happens to that cost? Guess what happens to that cost I showed you earlier, almost $200 in your industry per lead, as it goes higher and higher and higher. So for those of you that like to continue to pay more and more and more for a lead, don't do this stuff. But if you want to lower that cost per acquisition, that cost per lead, this is the way you do it. So I want to give you some great USP examples here. So this is that unique selling proposition example. And I'll play a little trivia with you here today, because if you can craft a very powerful, unique selling proposition, you will stand out in the marketplace and not look like all the other boring roofers out there. Not you in here, the ones out there who are very boring. So here's one. Fresh hot pizza delivered in 30 minutes or less guaranteed. Anybody know who that company is? Anyone? Just yell it out. Papa John, she said. Close. Domino's, right? So here's a story about Domino's. Domino's was a struggling pizza company until they came up with some really sharp messaging. As a matter of fact, the story behind Domino's is it was a little pizza delivery company started by some kids in college who, and this is a true story by the way, who smoked a lot of you know what, and they became very hungry when they did it. And they said, we need to somehow get a delivery service to deliver the pizza because we can't go out and drive because we're so stoned, high, wasted, he said here, right, that we can't do it. So they formed a delivery company that became Domino's, but the company never got traction until they created this razor-sharp messaging in the marketplace. Fresh, hot pizza delivered in 30 minutes or less guaranteed. Do you see how specific that is? Does it tell exactly what the company does? But it never said anything about the pizza being good. It's just fast, and it will be there guaranteed. Now, have you noticed that USP message isn't out there anymore? Anybody notice that you don't see that anymore? Anybody know why? A lot of car accidents to get the pizza there in 30 minutes or less. But the USP, the messaging, revolutionized the company's positioning in the marketplace. Here's another one. Tell me if you know who this is. When it absolutely positively has to be there on time. You're like one step away from my answers, right? You did Papa John's, UPS, FedEx. FedEx changed the game when they said it absolutely positively has to be there on time. And the reason they did this is they knew their audience so well, they knew the marketplace so well, that most of these other companies weren't delivering on time. They weren't delivering it when they said they would. So FedEx changed the game and they created this very specific message in the marketplace that totally blew the FedEx business up as well at a time where they were competing pretty intensely with UPS and some of the other shipping companies. So what would he do in this situation? So now if I were in the roofing business and I were a sales guy out in the field like a lot of you, or if I was running the company and training a sales force, here's what I would do. Number one, I wouldn't be boring. Do you know what the greatest sin in marketing is? One of my all-time mentors, Dan Kennedy, who I mentioned earlier, he said the greatest sin in all of marketing is being boring. We have no room to be boring today. So I also know that the two biggest drivers of human behavior are pleasure and pain. As a matter of fact, none of us make any decisions in life that aren't driven by pleasure or pain, meaning we want to move towards pleasure and away from pain. So if your advertising, your messaging doesn't speak to pleasure or speak to pain, you're somewhere in the middle, like that free quote ad I keep showing. I'm going to show it like another 3 times today as well. But you're somewhere in the middle there, probably getting lost in the shuffle. So I want to give you examples of some of the things that I would do because this can work, and it may work for some of you, but if I could take this to the next level, would you be interested? If I could take this plain, boring, vanilla ad to the next level, would you be interested? Of course, okay? So here's what I might do in this situation. Protect your most important assets by putting the strongest roof over their heads. Get a free quote today. Now, what have I done here? Big smiling family. Protect them. We all know that the roof is one of the most important assets of the home. I would say the foundation and the roof are the two biggies. But does this kind of show up a little differently than the boring ads that you might see out there today? It gets into what? Emotion, and it gets into humanization, right? Here's another one. Protect your family, increase your home's resale value, and save money with this unique roofing system. Get a free quote today. Sound different than everything else that's out there today? Why do I say unique roofing system? Because I'm at a metal roofing conference, and I know that your metal roofing technology, which we'll talk about in a minute, is really probably one of the best choices that anybody can make long term, yes? Okay? So does this pattern interrupt the normal? So this is pleasure-based messaging. Let's go to pain now. You've seen ads like this. Warning, avoid these 7 deadly roofing mistakes. And there's probably more than 7, but get the facts, get a free quote today. That's scary a little bit, right? Somebody doesn't not want to know that. Here's another one. Warning, your home's roof may be unsafe and costing you a fortune. Don't be fooled. Get the truth. Get a free quote today. So 2 quick examples of pleasure-driven messaging and pain-driven messaging that get attention today. Because if we don't sort of go off the beaten path and get a little bit controversial with our advertising and our messaging, we will get lost in the marketplace, and that cost per lead that I showed you earlier won't go down, it will go up because we won't get the response that we want to get. So for those of you that do the advertising and the marketing, or any of you here that do the advertising and the marketing and the writing of the copy and the magazine ads and all the, you do it here in the front, you write all the copy and all that stuff, okay? So this is the kind of stuff that gets people at least to hang in there for a couple more seconds. And if you can get them to hang in there for a couple more seconds, what does that do? It increases the chances of them booking an appointment with you to get into their home and schedule a roofing consultation. Okay? So those are just quick examples of the messaging here. Make it specific, make it memorable, because people have very short memories, and most businesses that advertise are not specific at all. They're very general. They're kind of like wandering generalists in the marketplace. And clarity is king. The clearer you can be in what it is that you're going to deliver, the better you'll do and the more you'll connect with your audience. Now, what I've just done here is I've showed you sort of how to slow down the sales process, because most of us want to just sell, sell, sell. But I'm here to tell you, doing this for almost 20 years now, that if you slow down the sales process and create some sort of a connection with your audience, your response will be huge. I mean, 2 times, 3 times what it is right now, and that's what I want to show you here today as we move on. Okay? So here's a $1 million question for you, and I'm going to ask this a few times throughout the day. The $1 million question that you want to always have an answer to is this: why should I choose to do business with your company versus all the other options available to me today? Now, if I met you in an elevator and I had to ask you that question one-on-one, how many of you think you could ring off a crisp bang? This is why. You could? How many of you could do that? How many of you would be like a deer in headlights if I asked you that question one-on-one in an elevator right now? How many of you wouldn't admit that? All right? This is where I want to take you today. I want you to have an answer to the right questions, because most people will say, why should I choose you? Why your company? I just got 5 other quotes before you even got here at 2 p.m. today. Why should I choose your company? Most salespeople, not only in roofing, do not have an answer to this question. And this is monumental to your messaging and monumental to your positioning as a company. Okay? I'm going to come back to that. I don't expect you to have an answer today, but by the time you get out of here today, I want you to go home tonight and be thinking about having an answer to this question, because it really, really shows that you have your act together. Okay? So when I was 20 years old, I got my start in sales when I got out of college. I went to college in New York. And I'll show you my age here, I guess, for a little bit. But my first cassette tape, when I was learning about sales, was Zig Ziglar. Anybody heard of Zig Ziglar before? The late Zig Ziglar? Any Zig Ziglar fans in the room? Yeah, you like Zig? So he had this great quote. He said, you can't make it in life as a wandering generality. You have to become a meaningful specific. And that applies, of course, to life as a whole, but it really applies to our advertising. How meaningful can we be? How specific can we be to create an incredible connection in the marketplace to get people to go, you know what? I at least want to hear these guys out. And that's really all we want to elicit in our advertising, is I at least want to hear these guys or gals out. Okay? So that is the messaging component. I don't know if this thing has a little laser on it, which it does, which is kind of cool. I love these little lasers. Can you see that? So again, most businesses, roofing or not, they start right here. They're so focused on sales that they don't take the time to slow things down and say, you know what, let's create better messaging. Let's try to create a connection so that when we do go to sell, it's a lot smoother of a sales process. It's not as awkward. There's not as much resistance. Okay? So now we're going to get into the sales process and talk about how to tighten up your sales process. So keep calm, and let's pull the trigger. Here's number 2. Trigger number 2 is sharpen up your sales process. Now, again, I asked this earlier, but I want you to be really honest, because I know some of you are shy as we kick off the morning. Maybe some of you haven't had your coffee yet. But how many of you honestly feel that your sales process is really, really good? On a scale of 1 to 5, with 5 being the best, how many of you are a 5? Nobody? How about a 4? How about a 3? This guy's a 5 all the way through, I can tell in the back, right? How about a 3? 3? How about a 2? How about a 1? How many of you are a goose egg? You think your sales process is a 0? How many of you wouldn't answer this question no matter how many times I asked it today, right? So maybe you're embarrassed to admit it, but listen, at the end of the day, it's very common for our sales process to be a little bit weak. I think that by being here at this conference, I'm guessing that a big component of what you want to take away is being better with your sales process. I know there's 2 other speakers, I think, later in the day that focus on sales and marketing. This is a specialty of mine, as I've mentioned, not just for roofing, but for any industry as a whole. So I know many of you have a sales prevention department, and I mentioned this earlier here today. It's funny, I do at my monthly events that I run for the Renegade Global Entrepreneur Group here in South Florida, I have a funny 8-minute segment that I do every month called the Sales Prevention Department. And what I do every single month is I take one business that I've actually done business with that just did everything in their power to make me buying from them the most aggravating, frustrating thing in the world, to the point where I didn't even want to buy from them anymore. So these are on YouTube, these are on my podcast, and I do this real funny sales prevention department video. But I don't want you to have a sales prevention department in your business, because most do, and it's very easy to default to doing all the wrong things that actually deter sales, okay? So I have a bold promise. I have a bold promise here today as we go into trigger number 2. I can dramatically increase your closing ratio here today in 3 simple steps. Not 10, not 17, not 452, but just 3 simple steps here today. Does that sound good? Just 3. That if you deployed these 3 within my 3 ROI triggers, you can't help but see way better responses in your presentations and in your closing ratio. Because again, I've come back to this before, when we do this, we start to now tackle that 23% number. When we have a better closing ratio, we can maybe take that 23% to 30, maybe even 40%, right? Because that's, some of you guys are working on tight margins, yes? Okay? So let's talk about this, because what happens during and after the sales presentation or your quoting process is extremely, extremely important. Okay? Most people only focus on the during, very few focus on the before, which is the setup. Very few focus on the follow-up, what happens after you give a quote or give a sales presentation. So my question is, are you just giving quotes, or are you also delivering outcomes? Think about that for a minute. Are you just giving quotes, or are you also delivering outcomes? Anybody not know what I mean by outcomes? Right? Outcomes, meaning the benefit to the consumer. What's the big benefit? Maybe I'll go around and ask you guys a little bit here. And I know the answer. I'm going to talk about some of the statistics that I pulled for your industry. What's the biggest outcome of having a metal roof? Just throw it out there. Longevity, I heard, right? What else? Peace of mind, right? Knowing that you don't have to do it again. What else? What's that? Tax rebates. I know there's some insurance, homeowners insurance cost or energy costs that they can help with as well. But most people don't talk about these outcomes. They talk about the technicalities and how cool it is and why it's important. So I want to move you to delivering outcomes, right? So that you're not, again, stuck with these boring vanilla quotes. And are you also providing benefits to the prospect? Okay? Are there clear benefits in your presentation? Are you also creating desire? Right? We're human beings. We're driven by desire. We're not driven by technicalities. We're not driven by how amazing that material in the corner is and how it will last for 30 or 40 years, although that's important. But there has to be some desire for us to want to make a decision. And then finally, are you also getting your prospect into agreement with you? And this is something I'm going to spend some time on today, because you will be blown away at how much better you'll close sales on your appointments when you can actually create some connection and some agreement with your prospect. Right? How many of you are married? How many of you wouldn't admit that you're married if... I'm kidding. How many of you are married? Show of hands. Okay. How many of you would agree that your marriage is going a lot better when your spouse and you are in agreement? Kind of obvious, right? Now, that doesn't happen much, but when we can get that to happen quite a bit, it's really good. It's no different in a sales presentation. Okay. So remember I showed you this earlier. Metal roofing is a product that needs to be marketed and sold, and selling techniques and in-home consultation are the keys to success. I bolded here, keys to success, because there's nothing really more important. But I don't like this term techniques, because oftentimes this term techniques makes sales kind of feel a little bit manipulative. It makes people kind of feel like they're cornered and they can't really make a decision on their own. My techniques show people how to want to make a decision. Most sales techniques force people into making a decision. Big difference. So I call them triggers, really psychological triggers at the end of the day, okay? So here's step number 1 in this part 2 here, is sharing the benefits of metal. And I know most of you do this. This will be the most obvious of my 3. I know that sharing the benefits of metal is something that you're probably passionate about and excited about, and it's obvious that metal is a better long-term decision, a better long-term choice. In fact, I learned so much about your industry when I was preparing this talk today that I want to go get a metal roof. So now I'm going to get swarmed in the back, and someone's going to try to close me with my techniques today. I'm hoping that was kind of a subliminal message here today, right? But here are the big benefits of metal. You mentioned it, sir, in the front row, right? These are obvious things. It definitely increases resale value, right? Isn't that an amazing thing for a prospect to know? It reduces energy cost, I read, by up to 40%. Maybe it's less, maybe it's a little bit more. It also can save you up to 30% on homeowners insurance. Those are very powerful benefits. Do you guys share those in your presentations when you're doing metal roofing and prospecting and in-home consultation? I figured you would. I think that the number 1 here will be the most obvious that you guys use, but the next 2 I'm going to show you will really, hopefully really turn on a better closing ratio for you. So the conversation I would have, and that hopefully you're having, is an invest now or pay later conversation. An invest now or pay later conversation. See, most people talk in terms of payment and how much is it, and what is this going to cost me? But I like to talk in terms of investment because truly a metal roof is an investment into the future of a home and increasing resale value. So if, as you're having your sales conversations, you can talk more about investing versus paying, what does that do to someone's mindset? Suddenly it doesn't feel like a cost, right? Suddenly it feels like I'm doing a good thing long term for the value of my home. So think investing now versus paying later, because at the end of the day, in the research that I've done, maybe somebody can't afford a roof right now, but having to do it again 8 years from now, 15 years from now, that's a big cost that over time is way more, right? Right? Okay? So can you show the prospect how it's costing them more now by not having metal? Do you do this? How many of you do this, honestly? No one? Some of you guys do? Okay. This is the area that you can really move the needle, and I got this study. This is really cool, by the way. So this study showed, and I forget which magazine I pulled this from, but it really showed you how to make the metal roofing conversation more of a long-term investment. And there's a great quote in here. I don't know if can you guys see that? It says, how would you feel about having to do it all over again in 10 to 15 years from now? Isn't that an amazing question to ask somebody who's thinking about a metal roof? Mr. Jones, how would you feel about having to make this investment again 10 to 15 years from now? What are they going to say? Oh, gosh, this is so brutal right now as it is. I don't ever want to think about this again, right? So this is a real powerful question. Now, this information is online. There's like a 50-year life cycle right here. I think if you can't see that, it says roughly 10 to 20 years you'll replace it, then another 30 to 40 years you'll replace it. But for people who are in their house for a long time, this is a conversation that needs to be had. So this is one of those conversations that's very much about the prospect, not about your company. Because what a lot of roofing companies and service-based companies do today is they launch right into a conversation about how great their company is. Oh, we're this, we're the best, we're in business 462 years, and we have 9,458 sales reps across the country, and we have this certification and that certification. But at that point, the consumer isn't really ready for all your accolades. They're more ready to hear about how they can save money, how they can increase resale value, how they can save maybe on their energy cost, and really figure out how they can not have to do this again 10, 15, 20 years from now. So this is a real powerful piece right here for you to do. Here's step 2. And this is the stuff that I'm thinking maybe most of you aren't doing. And if you're not, that's fine. This is very common. But this is the stuff that really, really increases your ratios a lot. Okay? So getting the prospect into agreement with you. Remember I talked about the whole marriage thing? Right? If you can be in agreement with your spouse. There's a lot of men in the room. What's the saying? A happy wife is a happy wife is a happy life. I hear I'm not married. I'm close to it, but I hear that's true, so I should hopefully, probably take my own advice here, right? But in your prospecting conversations, asking the right questions is critical. And most people think they have to have all this skill to be in selling today, but really, the big benefit I feel is taking the time to ask the right questions to your prospects. You've probably all heard this before, those of you guys that are in sales, right? You've read books. You've maybe studied this stuff. You've heard that asking good questions is really one of the best things you can do in selling and increasing your closing ratio. So I want to talk to you about some great questions you can ask today as it pertains to metal. Because these are the questions that get your prospect to go, really? No, I had never thought about that. So I'm going to give you some examples here. So listen to this question right now and put yourself in the shoes of one of your prospects. What's most important to you, increasing your home's resale value, saving money on energy and insurance costs, or protecting your family? What have I done with that question? Anyone? Make them think. But here's what I didn't do. I didn't make it a yes or no question that immediately sometimes shuts your prospect off. I made it an open-ended question, right? And I got them to think about the benefits of metal roofing. So here they are. Resale value? Well, I like that. Saving money on energy? That would be cool. Protecting my family? That's a no-brainer. So most people would say, geez, I want all of those things. I mean, this is something that if I could get all of those things, that would be incredible. And that's what your product offers. So that's a way to ask the right questions. Now, let me dig a little deeper here and give you some examples of what I would do if I were having a prospecting conversation or I was fortunate enough to lock down an in-house consultation. You guys go into the houses physically to do these. I assume a lot of this is in person, not on the phone, if I had to guess, right? Do any of you do this by phone? Probably not, right? You have to see the roof. So, quick question. Here's what I would say to you, sir. I would say, would you agree that tacking an extra $50,000 on your home's value over the next 10, 15 years would really make a lot of sense to you? Who would say no, right? Right. Here's my second question. I'm going to go to the ladies over here. Are you there's only a couple ladies in the audience. So ladies, does it make sense to you that if we could reduce your energy costs by maybe 30 or 40% starting next month, that could make a big impact on your bottom line? Absolutely. Who's going to say no? Here's a third one. Imagine the savings if you got your next insurance bill and it was 30 or 40% less than what you're paying every single month right now. Would you take that vacation you've always wanted? Maybe you could get that extra sport that your son or daughter wanted to play. These are the kind of questions that get people to think about their current situation and get them to go, wow, yeah, that's something I hadn't thought of before. Because what are other roofers doing? Technical stuff. Here's why metal's the best. You'd need this. You have to have this. We've been in business 462 years. We're the best. We have really cool orange shirts, and they really get attention in the marketplace. This is what people are talking about today. But this is the kind of stuff here when you ask the right questions. You know what it does? You know what it does? It builds rapport. And you know what rapport does? It builds trust. You know what trust does? It's the key to selling. So most people think they need to have all this skill. But your ultimate goal when you're doing these in-house consultations is building rapport, building trust, and this is ultimately the key to success. Okay? So most times in selling, asking the right questions is even more important than talent. So I come up here and I talk to you today about sales, and I talk to you about how long I've been doing this, and a lot of people go, well, you know, of course, this makes sense for you because you're entering your 19th or 20th year in sales, so obviously this is easy for you. But I'm here to tell you that I'm not that great at sales, but I'm a good communicator because I've learned some of these techniques that can help you quite a bit with creating that connection and asking some very pivotal questions that kind of get into the heart and get into the mind of your prospect when you're doing these roofing appointments, because this is a big investment, right? It's a significant investment. You know, what's the highest roofing job some of you have done? Probably over 6 figures if I had to guess, right? Right? Probably. So sometimes in selling, it's about the right questions, not necessarily about the talent. So step 3 here now is why you're a company. How many different companies Ariel, how many different companies are representing here today? I know there's groups within certain companies, 30, 40, 50 companies, probably in a room of this size, maybe 80 total. So why you're a company? How many of you think you're the best in the industry? Right there, that guy was, see, that was firm, right? How many think you're the best in the industry? Right? How many think your company is just lights out better than everybody else? There's no reason in the world that someone should be doing business with anybody but you. I was hoping you guys would be a little more confident in that, right? That would be good. But that's what I want you to feel. So the $1 million question I asked you earlier is this. Why should I choose to do business with your company versus all other options available to me today? Why? And in my step number 3 right here, if you can literally say, here's why you should choose our company, and have a firm, solid, impactful answer, do you know what that does to your prospect? They go, wow, this person is a specialist. This person really has their act together. And if we're going to make a $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 investment in a roof, I probably want to do it with a company that really has some good answers to those questions, right? Not a company that's kind of all over the place and, well, you know, we're this, and, well, you know, you ever heard somebody say that when you ask, well, you know, we're kind of this, and we're this, and we're and you, well, we kind of, and they're umming and ahhing, and they're all over the place, and you're like, ugh. What language was that, right? So it's the crispness that I want to help you create when somebody says, why should I choose your company? And then at that point, you can go add your credibility, right? Because you know what a lot of businesses do? They do this first, right out of the gates. So in my little 3-step process here within trigger number 2, what did I talk about first? Benefits. What did I talk about second? Right? First benefits. What was number 2? Savings. What else? Trivia here, making sure you're still awake. Benefit number 1, benefits, 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 okay? Number 2 was getting the customer into agreement with you or the prospect into agreement with you. So it was more of a rapport building. And now what am I talking about? Credibility, okay? Now maybe we can talk about warranties and guarantees. I know that's a big thing for a lot of you, warranties and guarantees. And then now maybe we can talk about happy customers and testimonials. I know a lot of you probably have great stories of companies that have had great success with you, and they sing your praises and they have testimonials on your website, right? Most people start with all of this stuff first. They talk about these warranties and guarantees, and they talk about credibility, but really they forget to connect first. And this is all about relationship building. And if you take the time to do the relationship building, okay, not just the advertising, this is how your closing ratio goes through the roof. It really does, okay? And this moves you from generalist to specialist, right? This moves you from generalist to specialist. So if I was going out to get a metal roof, I would want to work with the specialist in the space. I would find the company who could probably address these issues that I was talking about here today and find the company that really was the very best, that really had the right answers, that asked me the right questions. It made me feel what? Made me feel comfortable and made me feel like I could trust them because, again, this is not a small investment, right? This is a very big investment. This is a big sale, okay? So what would I do if I were you in the field making these wonderful sales? I would do a lot of scripting, okay? I would do a lot of scripting. So scripting is the key to selling in any business. Anybody not know what I mean by scripting? Scripting is the key in selling. Now, most people don't like this whole scripting thing because they feel boxed in. They feel like, oh, I could never read a script. They would know I'm reading a script. Well, believe me, I'm not suggesting that you go to your next appointment and say, okay, Mr. Jones, I have this script that I'm going to read to you, and I'm going to ask you these questions, and hopefully you'll answer. Not like that. This is something that you take the time to become an expert and a specialist as a salesperson, and you memorize some very key lines that you can ask over and over and over again, because the greatest salespeople in the world are not that talented. They have a system and a process, and they have scripts that they follow that work over and over and over again. But we don't like scripts. You know why? Because we get sick of hearing them from ourselves. But they work phenomenal, and they keep you boxed in. And if you look at a company like McDonald's, they have a process for their French fries. In Australia, in Florida, and in Canada, the French fries are made the same way. It's kind of like an assembly line, right? So if we have this assembly line-like approach to our sales process every single time, asking the same questions, it might change a little bit. It puts us in a position of being very comfortable and not changing and having a different process every single time. It's very powerful. So remember I asked you this question earlier? What's most important to you? Increasing your home's resale value, saving money on energy and insurance costs, or protecting your family? Again, it's an open-ended question, and it gets them to think, well, kind of all of them, not really just one of them. So these are the kind of questions that do wonders for you in building rapport and getting your client, I keep saying client, hope to be client, and getting your prospect down what's called the yes path. Yes, yeah, good point, right? This is what we want. We want them to kind of let their guards down and start agreeing with us, okay? So these were the three here within ROI trigger number 2. It's sharing the benefits of metal. Remember we talked about some of those really cool statistics? Getting your prospect into agreement with you. And this one right here, by the way, is not even thought about by 99% of sales organizations in the world. They don't take the time to even get into agreement with the prospect. So the prospect is always in a position of having their guard up because they've never really been asked the right questions. And of course, the third one, which is the one everybody starts with, is why your company. Accolades, years in business, large team, friendly customer service, amazing material, options, a portfolio. Here's who we've serviced. Most people launch right into this all about me conversation. Here's why my company's the best, 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 best. And what does that do? It just gets people to feel like you're bragging a little bit. Because you know what? They don't care about you. And this is in no disrespect to anybody. Your prospects don't care about you. They care about themselves. Right now, they're making a very big business decision on putting a roof over their head. And you know what they want to know? Are you the guy for me? Are you the girl for me? Can I trust you? If I have a problem, will you be back? Do you care? Have you taken the time with me? And that's really what people want to know at the end of the day. And it doesn't matter what you're selling. Okay? So this is where most people start. Now, I saved the best for last because I think the greatest opportunity in all of sales is in the follow-up, which is what happens after an in-house consultation takes place, or what happens after a quote is given, right? So we're going to go to trigger number 3 here. And as I said a second ago, trigger number 3, I saved for last because I can't tell you how many businesses miss this great opportunity and really do nothing at all after an in-house presentation. Now, I'm going to ask you another question, and I know some of you may or may not be brave enough to answer this question. We know the fortune is in the follow-up, but after you have an appointment with a prospect and you give this quote, what happens next? Phone call? Okay, good. For any of you, does nothing happen? Went on an appointment here on a Tuesday morning. Tomorrow's Wednesday, then comes Thursday, then comes Friday. Would any of you be brave enough to admit that maybe nothing happens after that quoting and sales presentation process takes place? Are any of you really not doing anything after the fact? Right? Some of you? So most will not buy right now, period. Right? How many people just say, I'm in, 40 grand, here's a check. 60 grand, here's a check. Happens, right? It's a great day when it happens, but does it happen a lot? People need time, right? They're also shopping you, right? Just the reality. They're shopping you. So most people won't buy right away. So my question is, what do you do with the ones that get away? What do you do with the ones that they don't get back to you? You leave a message, you call, and does this happen a lot to you? Sometimes, right? It's human nature. I've called this guy 3 times. We really had this connection in the consultation. And, oh, you know what? Your price is too high. I'm going to go to a competitor. Isn't that like the worst thing you can hear after you spent an hour at someone's house? But the fact of the matter is, most people won't buy right away. So there's certain things we can put in place to make them say, you know what, that's my company. And that's what I want to create for you here today. So what do you do with the ones that get away? Jokingly, I call this the morning after. We know what this term means. But in sales, there's a morning after. And there is specific steps and measures that if you put these in place, what happens after the sale becomes, and for many of you, can be a breakthrough in your business. So what you do after the sales presentation, and the quote is given? How many of you do follow-up with multiple methods like direct mail, email, phone calls? I know a lot of you use the phone and you follow up, right? Probably that's the easiest thing to do. But how many different methods do you use? How many of you use more than 2 methods to follow up after a presentation is given? By show of hands. Phone, email, any direct mail? Okay. How many of you are just making phone calls? How many of you are doing emails? Text, good. But the big question is, how long does it go on for? A couple days, a week, 3 months? Great. Who said 3 months? Good. So you have a cycle, which is good. You have a sequence, which is super. So we have so much technology today that the greatest news about all this is much of this can be automated. And we have things like phone and email, and we have staffs that we can put in place to do this. But very few companies I've noticed have actually put a multi-step process in place for what happens after the appointment. So what happens the next day? That would be day 1. What then happens maybe on day 3, 3 days later? Is it an email? Maybe it's a phone call from somebody at the office. Maybe we say, hey, listen, you know, we're running a special this month, and we just want to make sure you didn't miss out on it. We have until next Monday to offer this to you. We really love you to take advantage on it. I thought we had a great appointment within the home, and I really think, you know, long term, we're your guys. And there's that confidence that gets created, right? So again, the good news is much of this can be automated today, but you know, too many companies have a sales prevention department. I talked about it in the beginning. I talked about it in the middle. But what I've noticed is the real sales prevention department kicks in after a presentation is made, and this is our greatest opportunity to move the needle on sales because it's so hard to get that appointment. Would you agree? It's, you know, it's really tough to get someone to agree to have you come into their home. You guys are very much in-person salespeople that we have to work like heck to increase this number after the appointment is made, and this is where your greatest opportunity is. So what would Andrew do? What would I do in my little scenario here? I've seen no one do this. I've not necessarily been looking for a roof in the last couple months, but I do buy from a lot of companies that are in the service space, is I would send out what's called a welcome package. Now, you may be saying to yourself, well, Andrew, I just did a quote, and I just did an in-house presentation. I can't really be saying welcome to them because they didn't sign the deal yet, right? But what I'm already doing is assuming that they're going to work with me. So what I would do here, and this takes an investment of both time and money, is I would send out a very powerful, doesn't have to be overly expensive, but I would send out a welcome package, assuming that you, sir, I'll use you as an example, I had my appointment with you, I'm just assuming that you loved what you heard, we created that rapport, I went through my steps, and 2 or 3 days later, maybe by priority mail, you're going to get a welcome package in the mail. And what would that welcome package include, you're asking right now? First and foremost, it would include testimonials, big smiling faces of all the wonderful clients who sing our praises based on the business that we've done for them. Second thing it would do is it would have guarantees and warranties, because when you make a large investment, I think at the end of the day, we want to know that that investment is protected, right? A lot of you have guarantees and warranties. And the third thing would be credibility. Again, accolades, certifications you have. Some of you may have a book or a guide in the marketplace. I always recommend publishing something, even if it's a little brochure that has maybe 10 or 15 pages that talks maybe about the pitfalls of asphalt roofing or the pitfalls of shingle roofing, but something that educates. Because the business owner that takes the time to educate, not just sell, wins in the marketplace today. So now if I receive this from you, sir, I'm picking on you today because you're the orange shirt in the front row. You knew if you wore an orange shirt and sat in the front row, I was going to have to pick on you a little bit today, right? But if you received the welcome package from me, I had an appointment with you today on a Tuesday, and Friday you received the welcome package like this, what would you be thinking? Wow, they must be really confident that this deal is going to close, but more importantly, they took the time to do this. They took the time to show me more past the physical in-person presentation because we have to operate from the mindset today that your appointment was one of 3 or 4. And do you think that the other 3 or 4 people that they met with are sending out a package like this in the mail? I would guess 99% of the time, no. And if you're the one that does it, guess what happens? That's your differentiator in the marketplace. And I would challenge you to do a test. The next 10 appointments you go on, don't overthink it. Just get a nice little welcome package together. Collect some of your best testimonials. Put some good, solid information like that study I showed in there about the benefits of investing long-term in metal roofing. And then follow up with a phone call the next week and say, did you get our welcome package? They're going to go, I did, but we didn't necessarily say we were doing business yet. No, that's okay, Mr. Klein. I understand that, but I wanted to welcome you aboard anyways because I'm confident that you'll probably choose us at the end of the day. I know you have a lot of choices and decisions out there, but I really feel like long-term we're the guys or the gals for you. And you know what? Take your time. We're going to follow up with you again, but go through the welcome package, and if you have any questions, give me a call. Nobody's doing it. If I were advising you in your business, this is what I would advise you to do. And I promise you, if you take the challenge, your next 10 appointments, do it to 10, and then don't do it to the other 10, and just pull the numbers and see which one maybe closed because of the welcome package. And that's just one little technique that I would help you add, or that I would add if I was doing this kind of selling in the marketplace. Does that make sense? Right? It's a big difference, right? Now, if you really want to flex your muscles with this, you could send it by FedEx. Ever met somebody that didn't open a FedEx package? Costs a little bit more money. You don't have to do overnight. You can do 2 or 3 days. Maybe it's $20 instead of $60. But boy, if I got a FedEx package from a roofing company that just quoted me $40,000 with case studies and testimonials and guarantees and warranties, man, I would be like, these guys, it would be tough to not do business with them, even if they were a little more expensive. So you know what else this does? Creates price elasticity. It allows you to actually charge more because you're perceived as being more organized and more thorough and much more of an expert. And that's really the goal here with my triggers. Okay? As the saying goes, you never get a second chance to make a first impression. Right? You never get a second chance to make a first impression. So we have to be willing to invest time and money into the follow-up process to continue to create a connection and to continue to create that wow factor after our in-house presentation. Okay, so here's a quick review here. We talked about the big 3. Sharpening up your message. This is your advertising. It all begins here. Doesn't begin here, right? It begins with number 1. Because when you get to number 2, if number 1 is done right, number 2 becomes easy. Then it goes to number 3, your follow-up process. Of course, I gave you a very quick example of many I could give you. But if you just take these 3, sharpening up my message, being different, tightening up my sales process by really connecting with my prospect on an in-home appointment by talking about benefits and getting them into agreement, and then adding credibility. And then obviously having a follow-up process that doesn't just end with the quoting process, but extends in the form of direct mail or email or phone call so that they feel like you care and you're following up. You're not chasing, you're just following up. You will see a dramatic difference. And these ROI triggers will allow you to do more with less. So for those of you that are in charge of the advertising and investing money in full-page magazine ads or pay-per-click media, right? Wouldn't it be cool if you could do more with less? Wouldn't it be cool if you could do more with the next 10 leads you get than maybe you could do with the next 20? What does that do? Of course, it lowers your cost per acquisition, increases your net profit. We talked about that here today. But when I started with you here today, what was my goal for you? My goal for you was this: how to turn more quotes into more sales. This will do it. My goal also was to show you how to just add 1 extra sale per month, 12 per year to your business. And I know if I do that, for those of you that tacked an extra 12 sales onto your company's bottom line this year or over the next 12 months, it would be dramatic for you, yes? Could change the economics of the whole business, right? These will do it. These will do it. So here's a quick review. We talked about the big three: sharpening up your message, tightening up your sales process, cleaning up your follow-up. But the big takeaway today that I want to leave you with, the big takeaway today, hopefully after this is all said and done, is don't just invest in the advertising, invest in the relationship. And when you invest in the relationship and not just the advertising, you will immediately separate yourself from all the other roofers in the marketplace, and people will feel like you actually give a you-know-what about them. And right now, more than ever today, people just want to know that you care. They're not as concerned about the technicalities of metal and roofing and accolades and credibility. They really, at the end of the day, want to know that you care and want to know that you're invested in the process as much as they're invested in metal roofing. Okay? So again, we talked about this figure. I'm going to close with this. If we can get that down and bring this up, it'll be huge for all of you guys, and these ROI triggers will do this. These three things alone, not 17, not 10, not 15. These three things alone will show you how to get the maximum value and the most money from every single sales lead. Now, another question for you. I want to leave with this question. I started with a question. I want to leave off with a question. Would you like help with this? How about expert guidance in implementing this stuff? Would you like help with this? I know sometimes it can be a mouthful. So I have good news. My team and I can add these powerful ROI triggers for you, because I know that talking about something for the first time can be a little bit confusing, and sometimes you just don't know where to begin. So what my team and I do, mainly here locally, but we have clients that come in to see us from all over the country, is we create what's called a VIP Power Day. And a VIP Power Day is a day that we literally bring a small business in. It could be an independent business owner, or normally it's a team of owners and sales professionals and marketing teams, and we bring them into my office for an entire day one-on-one. And my team, and you've met Ray. Ray's running around here today. Ray does this with me. Ray's an expert at video marketing and event planning and event marketing. That's the good-looking guy in the back right there. He's very humble. He doesn't like to come up to the stage this way like I do. But we do this VIP Power Day, and from 10 to 4, we literally take a full day on you. And we inject these ROI triggers into your business. We literally sit down and we say, what's your message now? Let's improve it. What does your sales process look like? Let's add multi-steps. What does your follow-up look like? Can we add things like welcome packages? And can we add multi-step follow-up systems that really move the conversation past the quoting process and just totally elevate your game and your presence in the marketplace? And it works phenomenal. Now, I have here with me today, I have forms at my table. If you're interested, you can just fill out a completely no obligation interest form, and we'll get on the phone and talk more about that to see if that's a fit for your business. But really what this is designed to do is it's designed to add that one extra sale per month, 12 per year to your business, and we'll do it fast. Because you could do this on your own, but in one full afternoon, we really condense 3 months into about a full day. So you can go online if you guys would like to VIPPowerDay.com. We have forms in the back at my table. Don't forget, Ray's actually going to pass them out right now. I also have copies of my book at the back table, The Ultimate Success Secret. I have copies of my magazine called Renegade Entrepreneur Lifestyle Magazine, which continues this conversation. And for those of you that are in the South Florida area, I'll leave off with this. How many of you live in this area, by the way? I know this guy right here. How many of you guys live in the area? South Florida? Most of you? Every single month I host an event for Renegade Global Entrepreneurs. I'd love to have you as a guest. Anytime you want. We usually do these the last or second to last Thursday of every single month. And this is short notice, but this Thursday happens to be our July event, and it's called Storytelling for Ultimate Selling Success. And this shows you how to integrate the power of story into all the messaging that you put out there in your business. So you're all welcome to attend that event, and you can get more information at renegadeliveevents.com. Last thing I want to say to you is, again, congrats to all of you for being an exciting entrepreneur instead of a boring business owner, getting the heck out of the day-to-day, growing yourself, growing your business, and learning how to take your selling to the very next level. I commend you for that. I appreciate your time here today. Did you guys get some good value here? Stuff you can implement right away? I really appreciate your attention. I know we can get distracted. I'm going to be at the back table for most of the morning. If any of you have any questions, enjoy your week. This is a phenomenal conference put on by a phenomenal team here at Metal Masters. Thank you very much.